Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we're honored to be joined by Lakethen Mason. He is the Executive Director of Memphis FilmWorks. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jeremy. How are you? City Current, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Greatly appreciate it and love what you're doing on your end. We're going to dive into all sorts of storytelling and talking about our neighbors, our stories in search of common ground, which is really, really amazing. But before we talk about that, give us a little bit of your backstory. Give us some history on Memphis FilmWorks.
Well, Memphis FilmWorks began in 2016. It was on the heels of our first documentary that we actually produced related to the music industry or the new emerging artists and hopefully future legends and legacies for our music industry and our music culture here. The film was called Verge. And after Verge, we began working in the community and working on films about trauma, about addiction, about community building, about developing a sense of shared space. And we just kind of took off from there. And we've been telling stories, sharing stories, capturing stories, creating storyboards about the present day Memphis. And of course, hopefully seeing that as an anthropologic roadmap of discovery for generations to come.
Give us a little bit of the backstory for this project, because over 2 years in the making in terms of going out and getting all of these interviews. And so did it start out as, hey, this is what we're going to go and seek to create, or did it naturally evolve? Give us some of the backstory on this.
Wow. Well, I think I can start with the inspiration to hit go and to say, we're going to do this. I attended a shared prosperity seminar or workshop that was conducted by the Atlantic. They were doing an Atlantic Festival. This is back in 2019. And Rip Ransom, the chief executive of the Kresge Foundation, really made some remarkable statements about how do we rebuild and restore our communities? How do we look at equity and inequity from a safe space regarding race, poverty, and class? And this really sparked my imagination. They decided that they wanted to invest in grassroots organizations, small organizations like myself, who could present a solution or perhaps a contribution to that story. And since previously we have held conferences, we've done empowerment summits, we've been a part of we were a part of the MLK 50 project management team, building the I Am a Man Plaza, the MLK Reflection Park site, and events around that. So I was already hyped about Memphis, about the community, about the history of Memphis and our story, the bicentennial, the 200-year story. And once that all came together and the opportunity availed itself for us to apply for support with this idea to go throughout every community that we could find, known and unknown. Oftentimes we have, many people say Memphis is a city of neighborhoods, and it certainly is, right? And of course, we knew we couldn't get to every neighborhood, but we wanted to focus on those neighborhoods that are often not seen, not heard from, particularly the neighbors and the residents within those areas. We were lucky enough or fortunate enough to actually receive that support from the Kresge Foundation to interview over 300 families and residents in different neighborhoods, particularly marginalized neighborhoods, to assess the challenges they face, but also to understand the culture, understand the distinction of the contribution that the everyday resident and everyday family brings to the Memphis story. So we were excited. At the end of 2019, we kicked off our journey. We started walking with our camera around the neighborhoods. We were in Douglas Park. We were in Klondike, Smoky City, Raleigh, Frazier, South Memphis neighborhoods. And we were able to see what others perhaps either have not made room for or created space for, or did not want to create space for. And what we found through going through that journey, walking in the parks, being able to go on the doorsteps and the front door, the front porch, and have normal conversations with people that we tend to continue to drive by, that we were able to find a common sense and a common thread of humanity that was beautiful. And throughout that 2-year period, of course, COVID happened. And we had to deal with what that brought to our process of working in the community and making sure that we really, not only our intention was to create a safe space, but we really had to create some safe spaces and a safe place for our work to continue, and continued on. And then we ran into the civil unrest and the racial unrest with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, which brought another layer of context to cultural understanding and common ground. So even with or without these particular incidents, which has changed all of our lives, the pandemic, the civil unrest, we were already searching for common ground within our community, within Memphis, within the Mid-South. And we ran into the opportunity or approached the Assisi Foundation with the idea of publishing some of these experiences. The Assisi Foundation said yes, and I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. You know, in your own mind, you're thinking your ideas are great and it's going to spark everybody's excitement. But in that little side, that small, internal voice says, nah, it pales to comparison of other things that could be more pressing during this time. But they said yes, and so there came Our Neighbors, Our Stories in Search of Common Ground, the book. And the book itself is a collection of 100 stories around the lives and the shared experiences of our neighbors. Neighbors, again, that sit on the front porch, who have experienced life, and then some who are beginning to experience life. And what we found, from the beginners to the seasoned, experience, shared stories and of our neighbors, that we all have something to offer, and we all have something to contribute to the narrative of our lives. And Our Neighbors, Our Stories, I'm so excited about the book itself. Of course, it's going to be accompanied by a series of documentaries and films and videos as we roll out the book and launch the book on May 19th at the Halloran Center. But it's going to be a celebration of our neighbors, a celebration of our community. And that celebration means so much to me. I think I've gone past the excitement of knowing that there's going to be a series of films and documentaries about our neighbors. And I'm moving into the excitement, of course, being able to share the oral narratives via the book. And now I'm thinking, I think I'm excited to party now. I'm ready to celebrate.
Well, you got so much to offer. I mean, you've got all the interviews, the footage, the video, audio, and then you've got, obviously, now the book is kind of this compilation. And then the event too. So you have all these different ways to connect and share the stories, but also too, like you're saying, bring our community together to find common ground.
Right.
What do you hope that readers experience and take away from the book side? Like, talk about the book. What do you hope that they take away?
What I hope they take away is the fact that there are human experiences that we all share. And the silos that we create don't have to be there. There is an opportunity for us to develop a common ground, to develop a cultural understanding or a mutual understanding of what culture brings and represents to the richness of our lives. For a long time, I've actually settled on the fact that it's okay to be different. But even throughout the process of establishing my distinction or hearing the distinction of our residents, it really resonated with me that it's okay that our richness is built around our differences. We don't have to live in a circle or a box, but we do have to be able to coexist, share space, and value one another's perspective and contribution to society and contribution to humanity. The greatest asset that I found, in addition to sitting down with a centennial, 100-year-old great grandmother, auntie, who's a cross guard for high school, making sure children got across the street for 53 years of her life, to speaking to an emerging rapper who loves nature, who loves horticulture. And when he said the word, I'm thinking, really, that's cool, man. You know the word. Like, let me go look it up, right? and the final coup d'etat, the final kumbaya for me is when I open the book and I see 100 stories and I see 100 titles. Each of those titles become a lesson learned on how we are able to be good neighbors, great entrepreneurs, great civic leaders, and just really good people for our community. One title that continues to just ring in my head is showing up for one another. How do we show up for one another in our daily lives while also running and managing our own? But can we create space for that? Can we make room for that? We have titles like Deeply Concerned with Knowledge, based upon some of our education concerns within communities that are disinvested in. Can we be a player in the game? These titles really popped off the page to me and said, wow, this is a training program. This is an opportunity for us to now have future discussions and conversations on how we show up for one another, how we invest in our communities, how we are true players in the game, and how we provide equitable spaces that are safe enough to swim in.
I love that you're using it as a learning tool. I mean, it's one thing to share the stories, but then to use it as a learning tool to say, what can we learn from each other? And like you said, some of the themes obviously jump off the pages, but those become, okay, how can we galvanize and use these lessons learned to really open the dialogue, but ultimately come up with solutions to move forward? How has this kind of changed your view? So when you talk about your view of our city and your view of your role as a catalyst, how has this now changed your view?
I think it has, I don't know if it's changed my view, but it has definitely given me a perspective and a reason to advocate for others. And I think that is the elevation of humanity, is how do you allow human experiences, good, bad, indifferent, inspire you, motivate you, and keep you present in society, keep you present in the community. We've seen, of course, the themes, stand together by standing apart. We've heard people say Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. We've heard all of these slogans, and I don't think we really have tested it the way that we need to. So I believe that as we begin to move back into some semblance of normalcy, because we know that normalcy is, normal is, it's not happening. We're not going to be normal again, but we will be present. And so when we show up again and we're walking the streets and we're traveling the highways, will we have a higher elevated sense of shared belonging? Will we put down our guard enough just to understand the situation of each of our neighbors? And will we show up for them? And will we appreciate what they have to offer? Some of the stories within our neighbors, our stories, aren't always the polished stories. They're not the the ones who have won the game. They are not always the residents who have reached middle class or upper middle class or reached success, but they're trying and they're climbing and they're learning. And so as they're trying, climbing and learning, we have a chance to learn with them as well. And that's what's so exciting about this volume one, this first volume of Our Neighbors, Our Stories. Our intent is to do this forever, to actually continue interviewing our neighbors and going into those communities and learning side by side with them on how we show up for one another. And so this is the start. This is volume one. In all actuality, our goal, or the corporate goal, or I would say the philanthropic goal of meeting our objectives, 300 stories, we actually interviewed 780 people, families, residents. We showed up in communities. We attended football games during COVID, when football in certain communities or basketball in certain communities was not allowed. We showed up, and we now have a repository of Memphis history, culture, and life during one of the toughest times in our lifetime. So I'm proud to see this keep going. And this is just, again, the first of our long series of developing a repository of conversational culture.
Yeah. I love the fact too, that when you look at what you're doing, it has a deeper root around empathy, respect, understanding, appreciation for each other. And also, like you said, going into the community, so you're going to them and many times sharing the stories of those who haven't had somebody give them a voice, a platform to be able to really share. And so elevating their story, because everyone has something to offer, is a really powerful way to bring our community together. So I love what you're doing. You mentioned the event, so go ahead and talk about the event. Thursday, May 19th at the Halloran Center for Performing Arts. And so talk about what this event means.
This event is a celebration. And it's a celebration of our neighbors. It's a launch of the series of Our Neighbors, Our Stories. It's a way to bring attention and to the voices and the faces of neighbors that we pass by every day. The event itself, May 19th, will be held at the Halloran Center, which is where my first film was actually screened via Indie Memphis. So I have an affinity and a love for not only the building, the space, but what they're doing and what they've been doing in the community and how they've contributed to arts and culture there. We will be inviting the public. We'll be inviting public officials, community leaders, and the community itself to see what it feels like to be recognized for just being you, for just being a neighbor. We'll be having discussions about how we show up for our neighbors. How do we harness the spirit of being a neighbor and being a good neighbor? But also, how do we now enhance our community? How do we now take Memphis from feeling and being like a small town and being represented as a global solution for a more perfect city, a more perfect community, a more perfect union, and a representation of what humanity and investing in human experiences can bring to the world and what we can learn from it. So this will be a celebration of 100 neighbors, where we're talking like the Kennedy Honors. Each neighbor and resident and family that's represented in the book will receive a medallion, with the ribbon, the red, white, and blue, to actually signify civic pride and neighborhood pride. We will have artists and performers who are our neighbors. That's a part of this network of the book performing. We will be honoring some of our elders who have contributed to the story of Memphis. And we're going to have a wonderful time. We'll also be premiering the first episode of Our Neighbors, Our Stories documentary as a part of this ongoing series that hopefully will be a part of independent film festivals and music festivals. So we've got a lot planned for the event, for that night, for that kickoff. We'll be launching the book. The book will be available. It's a hardcover book. It's 502 pages of amazing stories that will lift you up, that will give you consciousness, and it will make life real for you, because you can see yourself in others if you create the space and allow it to happen. And what you have to offer can also change someone's life. So we're hoping to spark and inspire, no play on words for you, but
I love it.
I want to spark the imaginations of how we can now dwell in this beautiful city and everyone be able to take advantage of it. Everyone has a certain level of prosperity towards honoring humanity and honoring the human experience. And we're tearing down walls and we're creating a normalcy of good and a reflection of what can become out of having tough conversations to get to the good.
Yeah. We'll wrap up with website. So where can we go to obviously carry this conversation forward, to get the book, learn more about it, and obviously be involved with the event? So where can we find all this information to carry this conversation forward?
Absolutely. So Our Neighbors, Our Stories has a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram page. Memphis FilmWorks as an organization has those as well. So you can find us on most social media outlets. We're currently constructing our YouTube channel for Our Neighbors, Our Stories. So that will be up and running a few days pre-launch of the book, where you will be able to see promotions, or you'll be able to see some of the stories that we've been able to capture over that 2-year period. But of course, we are also have a website that will be officially launched April 1st, this Friday. So we're doing a big ceremonious launch of ourneighborsourstories.org, where we will begin to see folks coming and searching and pre-ordering the book, for that May event. So we're really excited about this journey. It seems it's almost like, if you describe it, it's the beginning, right? Even though it started in 2019 or 2020, the footsteps began, but now the real journey is starting to take place, and is starting to fill the spaces that have been void for so long. So what people feel is, oh, wow, you've done it. Like, no, actually, we're just getting started. And it's all about Memphis, and it's all about celebrating every neighbor in Memphis.
Yeah, I love it. Mention again the website. Where can we go? I know it launches April 1st, but where can we go to learn more? So mention again the website.
Yep. So our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, Our Neighbors, Our Stories. And then our website, which will be up this Friday, ourneighborsourstories.org. You can also find us on our regular website, memphisfilmworks.com, as well, to see other things that we're doing. Because believe it or not, this is just a small piece, but an incredible contribution to humanity and to the history and the story of our great Memphis.
Well, Lakethen, greatly appreciate all you do. I love everything you're doing. You and your team are amazing, and appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you.
Likewise to you. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.